Harbor Freight just released 7 new tools under $20 that are actually worth buying. This video is a straight breakdown of which of those new releases make sense for dads, homeowners, and anyone building a toolbox on a budget. Every tool you're about to see costs under $20, and every one of them solves a practical problem you'll run into someday. We're looking at value, use case, and what to check before it goes in your cart. If it doesn't change a buying decision, it's not in this list. And Tool 1 on this list is an upgrade that quietly fixes a problem most people don't realize they're dealing with until a project goes wrong. Tool 7, Bauer 21-piece Titanium Drill Bit Set. The Bauer 20-piece Titanium Drill Bit Set recently received a quiet refresh, and that's what makes it worth highlighting here. This isn't just the same old bargain pack sitting in a dusty bin. The updated release focuses on cleaner presentation, tighter case organization, and a more practical size spread aimed at homeowners rather than specialty users. First, what you're getting: a full range of the most commonly used drill sizes for household work. Pilot holes for wood screws, drywall anchors, light metal brackets, basic through holes in studs or framing. These are the bits you reach for repeatedly during normal repairs, not once-a-year specialty sizes. What stands out in this refreshed version is the case design and organization. The newer packaging holds each bit more securely in its molded tray. The size markings are clearer and easier to read at a glance. Older budget cases often allowed bits to rattle loose or spill when opened. This updated case feels more intentional and structured. That matters because storage frustration is part of why small bits get lost. The titanium coating also appears more consistent across the set compared to older batches. The finish looks uniform, and the cutting edges are cleaner with less visible burr on inspection. That doesn't mean it's industrial-grade steel, and it shouldn't be treated like one, but it does suggest better quality control in this release. Another important detail is the size distribution. The set focuses heavily on practical homeowner diameters, rather than padding the count with rarely used extremes. That makes it feel built for real household tasks instead of marketing numbers. Price is the final reason it makes sense. Harbor Freight's refreshed Bauer sets typically land at $17. The fact that the packaging and organization improved without pushing it past $20 keeps it in the smart buy category. Before buying, still inspect it. Open the case and check the smallest bits first. They reveal bending fastest. Roll one lightly to confirm it's straight. Make sure the retention slots grip firmly and the hinge feels solid. Look at the coating for uniformity. Why is this a good pickup? Because drilling is often the first step of any repair. Clean pilot holes mean screws seat correctly. Properly sized holes mean anchors grip tighter. Straight drilling prevents alignment problems later. This refreshed Bauer set gives you a complete, organized reset of your most used sizes at a price that stays realistic. It's not meant for hardened steel fabrication or heavy industrial drilling. It's built for everyday homeowner work. And within that lane, it makes sense. With drilling refreshed and reliable, the next upgrade that improves project control isn't about cutting. It's about gripping hardware securely when torque increases. Tool 6. Pittsburgh 8-inch slip joint pliers. Slip joint pliers are one of the most used tools in any house, and also one of the most overlooked when it comes to quality. Most people own a pair, but many of those pairs are older, loose at the pivot, slightly misaligned at the teeth, or prone to slipping the moment real pressure is applied. That's where the frustration starts. You clamp down on a nut under a sink or grab a rounded bolt in the garage, and instead of a firm hold, the jaws shift. Now you're squeezing harder, the metal flexes, and the hardware starts getting damaged. This updated Pittsburgh 8-inch slip joint plier solves that everyday problem. The 2-position adjustable jaw allows you to switch between smaller fasteners and wider fittings without reaching for another tool. That makes it practical for tightening plumbing connections, holding carriage bolts while you wrench the opposite side, gripping hose clamps, straightening brackets, or adjusting lawn equipment hardware. It's not a specialty tool. It's the one that handles quick, unplanned repairs. What earns it a spot on this countdown is control. In the under $20 category, you're not expecting premium forged steel performance. You're expecting stability. The updated grip design gives better hand traction when your hands are oily or damp. The jaw teeth are cut to bite rather than slide, and the pivot, when properly assembled, feels tighter than older budget versions that develop play too quickly. Before putting it in your cart, inspect it carefully. Close the jaws and look directly at the teeth alignment. They should meet evenly across the entire surface. If one side sits higher, skip that unit. Slide it between both adjustment slots and make sure it locks cleanly into place without wobble. Squeeze the handles firmly as if you're applying torque. You shouldn't feel noticeable outward flex. The pivot should move smoothly, but not loosely. These checks take less than 10 seconds and immediately tell you whether that specific unit is worth buying. The real benefit shows up over time. You grab hardware once and it stays secure. You don't readjust 3 times mid-task. You don't round off soft brass fittings because the tool slipped. You finish quick repairs faster because the tool feels predictable in your hand. With gripping pressure handled properly, the next weak point in most home toolboxes isn't holding hardware. It's turning it efficiently when you don't have full swing room to work with. Tool 5, Pittsburgh Pro, 3/8 inch drive, 72 tooth ratchet. A ratchet is one of those tools that quietly determines whether a repair feels easy or exhausting. You're under a sink cabinet, behind a lawnmower housing, or inside an engine bay, and suddenly you realize you don't have room for a full swing. You move the handle a few inches, it disengages, you reset, and repeat. If the ratchet has too few teeth or a rough internal mechanism, every bolt becomes slower than it should be. That's the tension this Pittsburgh Pro 3/8 inch drive ratchet addresses. The 72-tooth gear design reduces the swing arc needed to engage the next click. In practical terms, that means smaller handle movements still turn the fastener. Tight spaces stop being a struggle. Appliance brackets, car battery hold downs, deck hardware, mower blades, all the situations where clearance is limited become more manageable. What makes this version worth including on a sub-$20 list is balance. It's not trying to compete with high-end professional truck brands. It's designed for homeowners and dads who want smooth engagement without paying premium prices. When this ratchet sits below $20 depending on location, it becomes a strong value for the functionality it offers. You're getting finer engagement than entry-level models, which is where most frustration comes from. Before buying, check it carefully. Flip the direction switch multiple times. It should snap firmly into position, not feel soft or loose. Rotate the head slowly and listen. The clicking should sound even and tight, not uneven or gritty. Attach a socket and wiggle it lightly to check for excessive wobble. Some play is normal, but it shouldn't feel sloppy. Then lightly spin the ratchet with no load. If it feels stiff or drags heavily when free turning, choose another unit. What this tool changes is workflow. Instead of fighting clearance limitations, you make steady progress. Bolts back out faster. Reassembly feels controlled. You're less tempted to switch to pliers or adjustable wrenches just because your ratchet feels inefficient. The finer tooth count allows precision in confined spaces without sacrificing strength for typical household torque. Once fastening is handled smoothly and efficiently, the next improvement most garages need isn't about turning bolts. It's about preparing surfaces properly, so the next repair holds longer and looks cleaner. Tool 4. Warrior 4.5 inches. Flap sanding disc. The Warrior 4.5 inch flap sanding disc is one of those small purchases that quietly upgrades what your angle grinder can actually do. Most people buy grinders for cutting, but cutting is only half the job. Surface prep is where projects either hold up or fail. These discs are sold individually by grit, typically 40, 60, and 80. That matters because each grit solves a different problem. 40 grit is aggressive. It's for heavy rust removal, knocking down rough welds, and reshaping metal edges. 60 grit is the general purpose middle ground. It smooths welds without digging too deep. 80 grit is for lighter blending and surface prep before paint. What makes this worth buying under $20 is control. Instead of forcing one attachment to do everything, you choose the grit that matches the task. And because each disc is individually priced well below $20 depending on location, you can buy 2 or 3 specific grits and still stay within budget. Before putting one in your cart, inspect the backing plate. It should feel flat and balanced, not warped. Look at the sanding flaps. They should be evenly layered and firmly attached. Check that the arbor size matches your grinder, which is standard for most 4.5 inch units, but always confirm. Also, avoid grabbing only coarse grit if your project requires finishing work. That's a common mistake that leads to overgrinding. The real benefit shows up in efficiency. Rust comes off faster without gouging good metal. Weld seams blend smoother. Edges get cleaned up properly before paint. You spend less time switching tools or fighting the wrong attachment. For a tool that costs less than a single takeout meal, it turns a basic grinder into a finishing tool. And once surface prep is handled properly, your projects start looking intentional instead of rushed. Tool 3. Bauer 25 feet. Tape measure. The Bauer 25-foot tape measure is one of the newer additions in Harbor Freight's refreshed Bauer hand tool lineup, and the update is more than just branding. This version reflects the broader shift Harbor Freight has been making with Bauer, moving away from generic, disposable-feeling hand tools toward more durable, homeowner-focused designs. Start with the housing. The newer Bauer tape measure uses a thicker, more reinforced outer shell compared to older entry-level tapes. The casing feels denser and less hollow when you squeeze it. The rubber overmold has been improved for grip, which matters when you're measuring outside, working in a dusty garage, or holding it with slightly wet hands. It doesn't feel slippery or fragile. It feels like it can survive being dropped from a ladder or tossed into a toolbox. The blade itself is where you see the most noticeable refinement. The measurement markings are bolder and higher contrast than older house brand versions. The numbers are easier to read quickly, especially in dim lighting. That might sound minor, but when you're marking lumber or measuring multiple cuts in a row, clear visibility reduces mistakes. You spend less time squinting and double-checking. Another part of the refresh is the lock mechanism. On cheaper tape measures, the lock can feel loose or inconsistent. You engage it, and the blade still creeps slightly. The newer Bauer version has a firmer, more positive lock engagement. When you press it, it holds. That stability makes marking cuts more accurate because the blade isn't shifting while you're lining up your pencil. The standout distance, how far the blade extends before bending, also feels improved for a tape in this price category. You can extend it several feet without immediate collapse, which is helpful when measuring solo across a board or sheet of plywood. This remains under $20 depending on location, which keeps it in the practical upgrade category. You're not stepping into professional contractor pricing. You're replacing a worn, kinked, or faded tape with something that feels more deliberate and reliable. Before buying, extend the blade out several feet and watch how it tracks. It should pull straight without wobbling side to side. Engage the lock and make sure it holds firmly. Let the blade retract slowly. It should return smoothly without snapping aggressively. Inspect the end hook. It should move slightly back and forth. That movement is intentional to allow accurate inside and outside measurements. Why does this feel like a true new addition? Because it shows Bauer's repositioning toward more refined homeowner tools. The updated housing, clearer blade printing, and stronger locking mechanism signal a step up from older generic tapes. It doesn't try to compete with premium contractor brands. It just improves the everyday experience of measuring, and measuring is foundational. Every cut, every bracket alignment, every layout mark starts with that tape. When it's accurate, clear, and dependable, the rest of your project follows that same precision. Tool 2. U.S. General Magnetic Tool Holder. Strip. The U.S. General Magnetic Tool Holder strip is one of those simple tools that immediately changes how your workspace feels. It's not a power tool. It's not something you plug in. But once it's mounted, you stop digging through drawers and start working faster. This newer U.S. General release leans into stronger magnet strength and sturdier mounting compared to older lightweight strips. U.S. General is Harbor Freight's line, typically associated with tool storage, and this strip fits that category, built to complement rolling cabinets and wall setups rather than feeling like an afterthought accessory. What this tool does is straightforward. It mounts to a wall, cabinet side, or inside a trailer and holds metal tools securely. Wrenches, pliers, screwdrivers, ratchets, hex keys, the tools you use repeatedly. Instead of stacking them on a bench or throwing them into a drawer, they sit visibly and within arm's reach. The update that makes it feel like a newer addition is the magnet strength and overall build quality. The strip feels heavier and more solid in hand than older generic magnetic bars. The backing plate appears thicker, and the mounting holes are reinforced rather than thin sheet metal that bends easily. That matters because weaker strips tend to sag or allow heavier tools to slide down over time. For under $20, you're not buying another tool to use occasionally. You're buying easier access to the tools you already own. That reduces clutter and speeds up workflow every time you step into the garage. Before buying, lift the strip and feel its weight. It should feel solid, not hollow. If there's a display model, test it with a full-size wrench. The tool should snap into place firmly and resist sliding. Check the mounting holes to ensure they're cleanly punched and not bent or uneven. Why is this worth including? Because organization affects efficiency. When your 10mm wrench is visible, you don't waste time searching. When pliers and screwdrivers are aligned in front of you, projects move smoother. It also makes missing tools obvious, which prevents loss over time. This isn't about adding more tools to your collection. It's about making the tools you already own easier to access and use. And for under $20, that's one of the simplest ways to upgrade how your entire workspace functions. Tool 1. Braun 200 Lumen LED Pocketwork Light. The Braun 200 Lumen LED Pocketwork Light earns the top spot because it improves almost every repair you do without costing more than $20. This isn't an old-school flashlight refresh. It represents a design shift in Harbor Freight's Braun line. Instead of bulky, cylindrical flashlights that require one hand at all times, this newer compact pocket style focuses on hands-free task lighting. It's slimmer, flatter, built for tight spaces. What makes it feel like a new addition is the intentional layout. The flat LED strip spreads light across your work area instead of projecting a narrow spotlight circle. That means when you're under a sink, inside an electrical panel, or behind an appliance, you're lighting the entire workspace, not just one small bright dot surrounded by shadows. The magnetic base is stronger and more practical than older budget lights. You snap it onto a metal surface, and it stays there. No balancing it on a pipe, no holding it in your mouth, no propping your phone against something unstable. That alone changes how fast you work. The slim housing is another reason it feels current. It slides into a pocket, tool bag, or glove compartment without taking space. It's not oversized. It's built for modern tight mechanical layouts, engine bays, cabinet interiors, breaker panels, mower decks. 200 lumens may not sound massive, but for close-range task lighting, it's exactly what you need. It's bright enough to clearly see fasteners, wiring, and alignment without producing blinding glare in confined spaces. Before buying, test the magnet on a nearby metal surface. It should hold firmly without sliding. Check the power button. It should feel responsive, not mushy. Inspect the lens cover and housing for proper alignment. If it feels lightweight but solid, that's normal for this design. It's built to be portable. Why is this worth buying? Because visibility improves every other tool you own. Clean measurements, straight drilling, proper tightening, electrical safety. All of it starts with being able to see clearly. For under $20, this feels like a smart, modern upgrade rather than a filler flashlight. It reflects Harbor Freight's shift toward more compact, task-specific lighting, and it makes everyday repairs noticeably easier. That's the full countdown. 7 new Harbor Freight tools under $20 that are actually worth buying. Not hype pieces, not filler. Just practical upgrades that solve real problems. Drilling cleaner, gripping tighter, turning faster, prepping surfaces properly, staying organized, and finally seeing clearly when it matters most. If you walk into the store knowing exactly what to look for and what to inspect, you spend smarter. And that's the difference between building a useful toolbox and collecting clutter. I believe this would help you make better buying decisions. Kindly hit like and subscribe to this channel. I'll keep doing the filtering so you don't waste your money.